the live. Hi, everyone. Good evening. All right, so welcome to the 94th Friday Learning Session with College UX Design Community. This is the last Friday of 2023, and tonight on this last session of the year, we will continue the celebration that we have started last week of the people of college. And on this special evening, we are going to celebrate our amazing team of mentors and instructors who have shaped the careers of many in the community. And we will gain their insights on what traits design leaders look for in the UX interviews. Now, last week, our members have shared their experiences on the UX interview processes and their experiences that they have had over the year. They spoke about how they have landed new jobs and how they have got promoted. If you have missed that session, then the video is available on our YouTube channel in the live section, and also the link would be available in this description below. So without any further delay, let's come back to tonight's session. And I would now love to invite our chief instructor, Prasad, and he himself gotten a new achievement added this year in his professional journey. So Prasad, would you like to share your experience on the Harvard Business School Executive Education Program that you have attended this year?
Sure. Thank you, Hi. And, it's for me, this has been a very fun and scary year at the same time. What has been fun is literally, I had the opportunity, like I've always wanted to go to Harvard for a long time. And initially it was like, oh yeah, I don't have the experience, I don't have the background. But later on, I was just having too much fun. And I just got distracted from applying into the program. And this year I kind of figured, or actually last year I figured, this is probably the best time for me to do it. And when I went into the Harvard program, it was fascinating because the way the whole training program was structured is exactly like, where you bring in some of the really smartest people out in the industry. They're people who are, running multi-billion-dollar hedge funds all the way to people who have done like, multiple exits, entrepreneurs who have done like a few, $100 million worth of exits. To leaders like, one of my cohorts, my friends, was somebody who basically managed the COVID data that was flowing across the world, right? Another one are like, chief, innovation officers. And, it was like a very amazing group of people. But I think the most important one that we realized or that we felt was literally it was forcing people to think about a problem from many, many different perspectives. So what would happen is you'd get a case study and you would have to read it yourself. And then you had a group of people that you would have to study with. So you come up with an opinion, you go sit down with the group of people that you're studying with, and then you discuss with them. And we did, I think, I don't know, maybe 100+ case studies in some form. And out of those, I probably got only 2 of them correct. And that was, interesting because you would assume that somebody with my background would like get a lot of these case studies right, but actually it was not, because there were so many nuances in the cases that there were things that you would not figure out how to solve. But what was fascinating was somebody in your group figured it out, or somebody, when you get into the class and you're discussing this as a class, you see people starting to figure it out. And that's what I realized was the fun of learning, was failing in classroom so that you succeed when you're in the real world, right? And what was also interesting in a lot of these cases, we had the people like the CEOs and the chief leaders of those companies for whom those cases were written. They were sitting in the classrooms with us. And so as we were discussing them towards the end, the last 10-15 minutes, you would get to hear directly from them and say, okay, what worked, what didn't work, what did you do? And it was a very fascinating journey. So overall, what I kind of realized was learning, when we think about it, is really important. One, when you surround yourself with amazing peers. The second thing that I realized was it's great when you fail, because when you realize that there are things that you don't know and you start talking to other people, the people who are great in finance, the people who are great in innovation, the people who are great in many other different areas, science, technology. So when you start listening from these different perspectives, you have a very different perspective. Right? And then finally, I realized when you do all of these things, that's when you actually come out with a very strategic mindset. Because it's interesting now, when I look at the same situation that I had as a designer, I would look at the situation very differently because I have a very different perspective. So that said, what I want to do is I want to talk about our mentors. The first mentor for me, is an instructor as well, but he's Saurabh. He's worked with me for, God knows how many years, and I'm sure he would be able to give you a better perspective of that. But he was one of my first design students. Right? Before that, I was primarily, recruiting, and he was an employee of he is an employee of UX Reactor as well. But when I hired him, he was the first designer that I hired to work in the company. And he and I had a very interesting experience. He went through the training, the same training that you guys go through. He went through the same training with me, and then he kind of came through, and now he's the instructor as well as a mentor. And then we have Bhaskar and we have Simran. So what I want to do really quick is I'd ask each one of you guys, Saurabh, Bhaskar, and Simran in that order. Can you share us in a very brief manner what has your experience been like so far? What has your journey been so far? So, Saurabh, what has your experience and journey been so far?
From the start, I mean, when I'm getting hired until now, is it?
Correct.
Cool. Thank you, Prasad, for introducing me. So journey has been quite interesting. If I tell you a little bit about myself, I come from a very small town, Kanker, which is in Chhattisgarh state in India. And in my school time, I was really curious to work in computers. Right? It was not easily accessible to us. So we used to go, in school, and we used to try that and play with it. Right. So I thought maybe computer science is my thing. So I took that, I did the engineering. Right. There I realized that I didn't enjoy coding much. I enjoyed designing stuff on screen, like, playing with Photoshop, designing banners and all those things. Right. Then I was in a question like, what should I do? Okay, I make things look good, but how do I earn? Right. What do I do with that? And that was the urge, right? So I want to use my skills to solve problems and help people. So what can I do, right? Then I somehow searched on internet and did masters, right? And masters in design was very good, right? I got to learn a lot of things, a lot of conceptual things, right? And when I was in my masters the last year, I did not want to join corporate, right? I used to hate corporate jobs, right? Until I met Prasad, right? So before that, if anyone would in interview ask me that, okay, how many pixel did you use, or what is the spacing between these two elements, I used to leave that kind of interview, right? But then I met Prasad, right? And the conversation with Prasad was very interesting. Basically, I wanted to help people and solve problems with my skills, right? And we had similar conversation there. Prasad told about his journey as well, right? And the amazing outcomes he drove throughout his career. And he told about the team in UX Reactor. And I really got excited, right? And I got a chance to visit UX Reactor, right? And I felt everything there. And it was a good experience there. So I decided. And another interesting point there was I learned a lot of things in masters, right? But I didn't know how to implement and make it work in reality, in the ground for people, right? Ultimately, our thesis work would end up being in, files, under the files. That's it. So that was my urge. How do I make it a reality? How do I actually solve problems that works for people, right? So with that intention, I joined UX Reactor, and it was a amazing experience there, being a visual designer there. But when I was there, I was very curious into other stuffs, right? Be it recruitment or training review. So whenever there was any review that was there, I used to go there and ask, can I join here? Can I also review? And can I also be part of interviews, right? So I got those opportunities, right? And somehow along the way, I think Prasad noticed that curiosity. And one day he asked me, invited me and asked me, would you like to join Academy? Right. And my answer was yes, because I always enjoy doing something unconventional, doing something different, right? And when I used to work in UX projects, it used to take time to see the results of what designs I have done, right? But in Academy, I could see them much faster. If I'm teaching something and I'm seeing that, okay, somebody is getting some outcome out of it, it was pretty exciting for me. So I joined there, and then from then until now, the journey has been amazing. As an instructor in college, we are actually experiencing how to build a product, and how to do a lot of processes from the ground up. So it has been amazing. It's pretty enjoyable to see, okay, how I am contributing to a lot of others careers. So that would be my answer. Thank you, Prasad.
Cool. Thanks, Saurabh. And I think as a quick segue to what you were saying, is one of the products that Saurabh is working on is how do you make quality design education accessible? Because the challenge right now, and what he also talked about, is he learned a lot of stuff in college, but when you join the workspace, the challenge is how do you implement what you've learned? And so one of the things that he's working on is getting this program live on Udemy for training for, where we have distilled all the knowledge that we've gained in practicing design when we are delivering design, and we're putting that into these videos and putting it on Udemy. And so for those of you that are interested, we are looking for beta testers. If you are interested in beta testing and learning about that program and kind of giving us feedback and telling us what is working, what's not working, it would be really valuable if you can sign up and send, share your feedback. So what I would suggest is we're going to put the link to this beta test down in the chat. We're also going to put it on the YouTube link. So please do sign up. I cannot guarantee that we'll take everybody, but we will select people from all the people that apply. And then you will get an opportunity to beta test and give us feedback and interact with us as well. So the first course is really about how do you plan your career as a UX designer. So this is, and then there are 5 other courses that are coming right after that. So that said, let me now introduce Bhaskar, who's our second mentor. And Bhaskar is interesting because he comes from an architecture background, and he was doing graphic design, and he's transitioned into UX. And he was probably one of my first batches of the intensive groups. So go ahead, Bhaskar. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey and your experience?
Yeah, thank you, Prasad. So, a little bit introduction is that I am basically architect by education, and I have been more like one trait which I can highlight is that whatever I was asked to do, I had to do it something different, even in my architecture sheets or anything in those lines in my college days. So in the same lines, when I wanted or I was doing my internship in architecture, and which is where I figured out one problem, which was like the company was using almost 5 years old software to render plans, like other building plans. And we used to take like 2 to 3 days only just to spend on rendering those stuff, which was like very hard to even because there were other tools like Photoshop, which we could do it in a very small time. So that's where, I stepped up and I just asked my manager that, so there is one more way which we could try out, and the process would be set kind of thing. So that's where when I introduced that process, I just made all these pre-built layers in Photoshop, and it actually turned out that we could do that 2 days or 3 days of work in just 30 minutes. And also we could actually edit any of those plans in Photoshop rather than going back to from CAD and then coming back to this software. So that's where I think managers or the leadership, I got like appreciation. And then one of the leadership, so he spent time in actually talking about what was my interest and all, and he introduced me to this field of UX, where I just got to know that there is something which is there, like a design field, but then there was only one chance, which was masters, and I started preparing for my masters by quitting that internship or after that internship. So that's where I think I studied different kinds of designs like graphic design or even animation design for just to crack that interview for NIDs or seats, whatever were there. So, but
And just
unfortunately,
for context, these are like the top design seats in India. They're like probably what, 200 or 300 of those. And there's a lot of people that compete for them. Is that right,
yes.
Bhaskar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are like NID has almost 12 kind of what is the branches in design, but they take only top 15 members from that. And that's where 2 years I have been trying, and I got like seat somewhere around 300 ranks, and I couldn't get into it, which is where I thought now it's enough. So I have to parallelly work on professional experience, where I created one of the portfolio and applied to internships, and fortunately got into it. And that's where I got to know it was a startup basically, and that's where I got to know that there is different kinds of things happens in startup. It's not just like a UX focused thing. And I got an opportunity to work on their graphic design, their social media posts, and it was more like all-in-one designer kind of thing. Actually, me and Mohan actually worked on even storyboarding for their marketing videos altogether. So that's where I think I have learned a lot, and I got to execute those things. And as the company was scaling up, it was more about different products integration and all, which is where I thought there was less scope for design, and I made a switch to more service-based company, where I got to learn more about different domains, how different domains operate and all. And in between, when I was doing all this stuff, so 4 years, fourth attempt, or the 4 years, I have been trying for masters in parallel doing my job. So that's where I think in the fourth year, when in 2019, I cracked NID for the first time. And there was one more parallel thing which I would highlight, like what I was doing both by preparation and this thing is what going to in-person events for design, no matter what design event it is. I went to this, I mean, if this is very famous, Leave Artists. So they create comics for architecture. I went to their workshop. I went to graphic design workshops. And that's where first time in 2019 in Microsoft design event, I met Prasad sir, then Anil sir from Lollipop. And there were two other people like Vaibhav Sinistri, who runs Growth School right now, and also Mayur Chaudhary, I guess. So he runs Mintra leadership, I mean, UX design team. So that's where I got to meet these kind of big people who and know their perspectives, what actual UX is. And follow up, I attended so other workshops kind of thing. And 2020 happened, which was COVID right there. And I was, I think the second what was a stage of interview process for NID also was delayed a lot. And with this learnings from workshops and all, I just prepared one portfolio for it. And after that interview, I thought I would clear, but then I got 32nd rank in that thing, and still I couldn't qualify for that master's seat. So which is where I was in like.
And again, this is 32nd out of thousands of people, tens of thousands of people who apply, but you didn't get it. Okay.
So that's where I think I was in a dilemma, like what would be the next step I have to take, because I was trying so hard for this step. and which is where I got to know about this UX reactors training, which is being first time opening online, and I joined the first batch of Kickstarter. So from there on, I think from Kickstarter itself, I was able to actually articulate my thoughts in my work area, which is where I got recognition for very small things that actually made a huge impact in this business. And after intensive was also like 1 year hard journey, and after that I was again for being trained like not only conceptual skills for additional skills to crack that high level jobs, and that's where I think I ended up into my current job, which is Pega, and here I just work on UX, which is fundamentally like crafting workflows for different experiences. So that was my whole journey, like transferring from one step and learning at all point of time.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you, Bhaskar. So I'm going to come back, and the next question that I'm going to ask everybody, just so you prepare, is what has your mentorship journey been like? What have you noticed? What kind of students do well, at mentorship? What are they making mistakes in? What are the common mistakes and what are the common things that they work on? But now let's go to Simran's journey. And Simran's journey is interesting because he's come from animation and he got into design. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey, how your journey from animation to design worked out?
Okay. So firstly, thank you for giving me this platform. And I'd like to start my response by telling you that I consider myself very fortunate that I knew what I wanted I mean, you knew what I wanted to do in my career very early on in my life. In about 11th standard, I knew I wanted to do something with videos and something with design and being creative, etc. And I joined Zoho. I was placed in Zoho for the role of motion graphic designer. And then around 7 years in doing various things, crazy things, etc., I hit a glass ceiling. And this was sometime in the beginning of 2020. And I was looking back at my career and I started reflecting on the feedback that I was given from my clients and managers. So the clients would basically like the output because it was thought driven and everything, but my managers would have pretty subjective feedback, but in their heads they thought it was the most revolutionary idea the world has ever seen. And things like change the color of this, maybe make this shirt a little bluer than it was earlier, and very subjective things like that. And for some reason they thought that these little changes will somehow impact the video or the whatever they were trying to achieve by this video.
Wait till
Yes.
you become a manager yourself. You'll do exactly the same thing.
Eh.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so things that were very okay, my God. Anyway, so things that are very subjective, and I started realizing, were these changes really required? Like, what impact did any of these changes make? Because some of these frivolous changes would take hours and sometimes days to make, and it didn't. I was wondering if it really added any value. So while I was studying in college, I was very fascinated with the inner workings of the human mind and behaviors and everything. And my roots came from psychology and spirituality, and I've just been very fascinated about habit forming behaviors, etc. And I was wishing that if there was a way of integrating design like aesthetics and art and whatever with psychology in some way. Two of my favorite topics that would be measurable and sort of solve problems, etc. And that's when I discovered UX design, where human behavior and perception were integrated with every single thing, like things like a mouse or a cell phone or something like that, right? Every single thing had design integrated into it. And that's when I realized that design wasn't really just aesthetics. So I started learning and networking with people in my organization, uh, thinking that maybe I should get more into this, right? So I was trying to understand what is UX and all that. And when I was on Facebook one day, I came across this post saying Rockstar Design Challenge. It was a 2-day workshop. And I was like, wow, this is interesting. And there was like this photo of Saurabh looking really young. I remember coming across it recently and I shared it and I had a laugh. We had a laugh with that. So that Rockstar Design Challenge was a workshop. And I was like, okay, let me just check this out, right? And it was free. So what do I have to lose? And I got to see you, Prasad, and interact with you and hear some of the knowledge that you were giving. And the only thing I was feeling was, how the hell is this stuff free? Like, this guy is literally giving some amazing wisdom, and he's just giving it away for free. And that's when I realized that, okay, I really see value in this, and I joined college and learned the UX. I mean, went through the UX intensive course and everything. And the journey has been so far really great. And after joining college, I had this mission that I wanted to have one designer friend from each state in this country. And thanks to the community, I've got friends in Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, to name a few states, and my list keeps growing with time.
So here's the other question, and I'm going to start with you, Simran, is what has your journey as a mentor been? So there was obviously the training component, but how has your journey as a mentor evolved, and what have you observed in terms of, what's holding people back and what's accelerating people when you're mentoring people?
Okay, so
Because what is interesting is you have had a number of your folks get jobs.
yeah,
Right? In fact, Achyut was one of your students, and he basically got a job within, I think, about 4 to 6 weeks of starting the program. And you've had like so many other folks, like, I believe Tanya was your student as well. Is that right?
yeah.
Yeah. So there's so many other folks that have been your students who've basically gotten jobs turned around and gotten jobs so fast. Now, what do you think are the positives, and like, what are they doing right, and what are people not doing right?
Okay, this answer might sound a little cocky, but there was this statement, right? I think it's from the Karate Kid, said that there's no bad student, there's only something called a bad teacher. So I was like, okay, I'm presented with this opportunity, so let me see what's the best way of approaching this entire thing. And I was very nervous when Rajiv had approached me for this portfolio builder series to be a mentor, and I was just the only one there, and I was just really nervous. And what had happened was I kept reflecting on that statement, right? Like, bad teacher, there's no such thing as a bad student, there's only a bad teacher. So I was like, okay, maybe like, how do I approach this entire mentoring thing in the first place? So I decided to be a friend to my mentees, and that's how I engaged with them. And uh, so because of that friendship that was sort of integrated into the dynamic, I felt that the barrier of what do you say, awkwardness was removed, and I was able to have a very transparent interaction with them. And for the people who completed I told everyone that if you guys put in the effort and stuff, you will get the output for sure. And I also said that I also used to give them little nuggets saying, don't waste your time with these kind of things. Sort of tell them what are the errors that they could encounter going forward. And so I said, if you guys get your assignments done properly, keeping time and everything in mind, I can assure you that you will be able to find value in this, and also make this useful for your career. And I guess that's what happened. So in fact, after the portfolio builder series, most of these guys still keep in touch with me. We message, and it's even conversations outside design. So I'm happy that the friendship aspect was the foundational stone between this entire thing.
It's interesting. And what do you think? I mean, I get the point. What you're saying is there's no bad student, but there's a good. But what are the strategies in students that seem to work really well? Or when you're learning UX, what strategies seem to work better?
So, I mean, this is a tricky one because it depends from student to student. So I think the fundamental thing is there is this innate question of what is design, because a lot of people still perceive it to be a form of art, right? So once that, and especially in UX, since UX has so many random umbrella terms like product designer, UX designer, etc., etc. So those labels sort of confuse people. So I feel that once they understand what design is and what is expected out of them, then they seem to be more aligned and focused on one track rather than randomly shooting darts hoping that it'll land. Is
Got
what
it.
I felt.
Got it. Thanks, Simran. I think that is really valuable to realize, because if you don't know what you're shooting for,
Yeah,
then what do you focus on?
yeah. In fact, that's
Because,
some. Yeah,
yeah,
sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just saying that, in fact, that was something that happened to me because the only thing that I required was direction. So when I found this platform, the college platform and the courses and everything, I finally found direction. I finally knew what the industry expected and what was required and what were the kind of commitments one would have to, uh, you know, bear in mind in order to execute. So that entire thing sort of shaped me personally as well. So direction was very important.
Got it. Cool. Thank you, Simran. Bhaskar, what do you think? So you have also mentored a lot of folks over time, and a lot of your students have also succeeded and kind of been placed in like companies that people are hear about all the time. So tell me about your experience. What works well for people who are in UX, and what doesn't really work when you look at it from a mentorship perspective?
When I was first asked to just mentor people, so it was more towards for portfolio. So that was the first step, which I was even very sure about what I was doing. That's where I got the opportunity to actually mentor for portfolio and tracking the interview process. So first thing which I observed or is that there was a lot of like mismatches into how what were the expectations and what it was expected out of the outcome for that exercise. So that's where I think building trust is the first component which comes into place, which will actually be the foundation to even get the outcome fully from the mentors, and also like understanding what the other person is in at like in a situation. So that also has to be fine-tuned. It's not a straightforward process. It's kind of involves different things, and that's where I was in that straight line of thought process. But once I started interacting with it, that's where it shifted, that it needs to be somehow some connections has to be broken and somewhere it has to be made to actually achieve that outcome. So that was one thing which I learned from that first thing itself. And also that
So
actually
very quickly, I just want to summarize what I heard. So what you're saying is it's important for a mentor to understand the journey of the mentee and figure out what they're looking for and how they want to move forward and change your strategy accordingly.
yes,
Is that right? Okay, got it. Okay.
it actually varies from various person, and it is purely focused on portfolio and interview because it is like a path breaking step for them to make at that point of time.
Correct. So when you notice, like, this is very interesting because you were helping people. Obviously, you did a phenomenal job with your portfolio and the interview process, and you kind of cracked it. So the interesting thing that I'm thinking is obviously people complete their training and then they are coming to you for the final step before they go on to present their portfolio and interview. So what are the interesting challenges that you find that people struggle with when they are in that stage?
I think mostly in the training, it's more towards how conceptually strong they are. But what points in that concept should they talk about in the portfolio or even an interview is what they struggle a lot. Like which to prioritize, what component to prioritize is where. Because I think since people have worked, even I was there, I have worked on my so many screens and all. Now I want to include everything into my portfolio and just showcase it. But the time which is available to showcase portfolio or in that interview, that 15 minutes is the benchmark that we have to nail it down, like what component or what skills should we communicate in that 15 minutes such that it would be extended to some more time, or even it would it would give an opportunity for us in an interview for this next step. So that's where I think that kind of prioritization model is where they struggle a lot.
Got it. Got it. Interesting. Because what is interesting is you applied for, I think, about 4 or 5 jobs by the time you were done, and you pretty much had an offer from everyone.
Yes.
And you had multiple companies looking to hire you at very competitive salaries and competitive opportunities as well. So what I'm hearing is people need to know, like, yeah, you did a lot of stuff, but what are the specific things you want to talk about so that you can extend those 15 minutes of interview time to maybe 30 minutes or 45 minutes so you can have a conversation with the other person. And the second thing people need to understand is how do you simplify what you're talking about. Is that right?
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. Good. Thank you, Bhaskar. And we're going to come back. But now I want to talk to Saurabh. Saurabh has probably spent the most amount of time, within the community mentoring. And he's probably seen everybody in probably every program. So what are your thoughts, Saurabh?
My thoughts are basically, I like getting these, good news, right? Every week or other week, I'll hear, okay, somebody got a job or somebody got a recognition. So it's really interesting. And how I have evolved over time is, initially when we started training, we had one strategy to train, right? Which was like, okay, very intensive evaluation, very intensive reviews in which, we would not negotiate anything for quality. And it used to be very tightly intensive, right? But as we spent years, what I have learned with you also is, we need to consider all the constraints and see, okay, in these constraints, what strategies would work. So for example, we are doing training online, right? And people come from different backgrounds, right? So one strategy might not apply to all, right? And that is where I also started learning, okay, if someone, some people will be very okay to get all the kind of feedback that we can give to them, but some people, we need to see where they are and help them, get to the next level, not tell everything in just one go, right? And be very focused on their growth on the main thing, which is learning design, right? And seeing other things like discipline and all, that is also very important, right? Because discipline is also a very important point there. But balancing these different variables to train someone to, help them achieve something, there has been a very different shift from first year to, third or fourth year now, right? And we have been able to optimally train different kinds of people coming from different backgrounds. So that is very fascinating for me, and how it helped me grow as a mentor, right? Because now I am able to help people, different people, right? So it feels good, it feels very good.
And so when you mentor people, so what kinds of things do you make people succeed and what kinds of things make people struggle? When you're the mentees, I'm talking specifically from the mentee perspective.
Yeah. So whenever I see that, there is an element of they are taking risks and exploring new ideas to solve the problem that's given to them, right? Even though the approach is wrong, I still appreciate them, right? And I tell them, okay, how to correct if there is any mistake, right? But if there is any fundamental mistake, so for example, currently we are doing research batch, right? For batch 5, right? So people wrote for research questions, people wrote protocol questions, right? So I stopped them there. Like, no, you have to get this fundamental right. Then only you
So
can move to the
protocol
next step.
questions are the questions that people would ask of the participants. Is that right?
Participant. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Go ahead.
Yeah. And research questions is a set of questions for researchers themselves, right?
Okay, so what question are you trying to answer? That
Yeah.
is the research question is what question are you trying to answer? And the protocol questions are what specific questions are you going to ask to get the answers for the research questions?
Right. So
Got it.
research questions will help you decide what research method you need to follow to be able to get an answer for it, right? But
Got it.
if you define just protocol questions, you're biasing yourself from the start, right? So in that kind of scenarios, what I do is, no, just stop here, right? The fundamental is that you should be able to get get how to define the research questions tightly and well without ambiguity, right? So
Got
that
it.
you can think about protocol questions and other questions later. So if there is any flaw in fundamental understanding, right, I make sure I stop them. I, give the clarity. I make them practice that, and then only let them move forward.
Got it. So if I understand you right, I'm just going to summarize what you said. Number one is people's willingness to take risks and explore, right? That helps people succeed, because the more you take a risk and the more you explore, the more you know what works and doesn't work.
Right.
The second aspect is taking small steps. Try not to jump the process, but take the small steps and understand the sequence of things so the concepts get tight. And it's also about making sure that if you don't understand something, don't go to the next step. Make sure you understand it, and then you go to the next step, and that helps you learn.
Right. If your foundation is not correct and you try to build a building, it will fall the next year or later, right? So that is why fundamentals are very important.
Got it. Got it. Interesting. So let me ask a slightly different question. So, and we'll go the way back, which is, again, we'll go to you, Bhaskar, and Simran. But the question that I would ask is, in today's economy that you're saying, it's really weird. I mean, I've been in this industry for a long time, and it's really weird because one, people who just graduated are finding it really tough to get jobs.
Right.
People who have jobs are struggling to keep their jobs, and there's a level of competency that's expected of people has become so much higher. Right? And it's magical because what I'm seeing, the questions that are being asked, the interview questions that are being asked today are at so much of a higher level when compared to even 2 years ago or even last year. So what kinds of trends are you noticing in the market when people are interviewing and growing in their careers? How are people being recruited? How are people being promoted? What are people looking for? What are companies looking for?
Right. So I would say there are two interesting points there, two interesting trends that I see.
And feel free to share any anecdotes that you have from your mentees, if you know of any stories that you want to share, or if you think there are any appropriate stories, that would be great.
Right, right. So I come across a lot of people who want to, let us say, learn Figma, right? Or learn prototyping or wireframing and things like that, right? My observation is that if you are only trying to somehow learn the technical skills of, let us say, creating something or communicating something, right, on a technical level, I would say it's going to be very hard, right? Because, okay, today it's Figma, previously it was SketchUp, and it will only evolve. And now we have AI also coming in, right? So it's going to be super hard to just have technical skills, even though you are really good at it, right? Because industry does not only demand technical skills nowadays. What industry is demanding is more cognitive skills of how you can correlate two or three different things and solve a problem, right? How can you question back when you are being interviewed about a problem? For example, if I tell you that, these are the requirements, just take this problem statement and design, right? There are this feature 1, 2, 3, and 4, just design it, right? But if you just go ahead, do the design and come back to me, right? I won't appreciate it because you didn't ask questions to me, to, why do you think this is the only solution? Why can there be why cannot I mean why there cannot be any other questions, right? So people with adaptability and higher cognitive skills are going to be appreciated, because the evolution, the pace of evolution in which, tools and everything are, moving up, it's crazy, right? So you have to be more comfortable with ambiguity, and you have to keep your ears and eyes and your mind open to take interest, the challenges that are coming in, and try to solve problems, right? And the fundamentals, whatever technology may come in, right, the fundamentals are always going to be same, which is, okay, if you get a problem, variabilize, figure out, okay, what are the metrics, and there is a process to solve it, right? But you have to have that problem solving mindset. You have to be adaptable. You have to now target for higher cognitive skills. That's the trend
Got
I'm
it.
observing.
Got it. And that is interesting because the salaries in design are only increasing. For people who are competent, who are able to do it, their salaries are continuously increasing.
Right.
But the people who are not able to do it, they're finding it tougher. That's interesting. So I'm going to shift to Bhaskar now. And Bhaskar, can you share what do you think? And you've been, you're looking at it, you've interviewed in the last 2 years, as well as you are now mentoring people who are, interviewing and moving up. So what do you see is what is happening from the way the market is working? What are companies looking for, and how are they evaluating people, and how should people prepare for that?
So anchoring back, when I was even hiring for my replacement in my previous company, so there were many resumes or portfolios which were coming, and by the time I also had 2.5 years spent in my organization, which I understood what were they expecting for that specific role. So which is where when I found out, when I looked at all those portfolios, it was very challenging to identify or even see the skills what they are trying to project, because it was almost in a similar lines of portfolios and all. And at the time there were 8 people or 10 people who were coming, and once we started, I started talking to them. They were understood like what they presented in that, and there were a difference in what they were talking in that specific interview. So I think that bridge needs to be actually uh, somehow built, and we need to actually show what we are capable of or what we are trying to put our skills and all. So it boils down to being honest in that whole hiring process, and also crafting the portfolio, whether you have done it accurately or not. That was one kind of observation which I was done, and what in my company, what even I suggested them to do is, okay, so we will identify the people who has a different kind of case study apart from this kind of normal templatized thing. So that's where we found out 2 to 3 people who were standing out there, and which worked out really well, like because they were able to actually articulate those decision making, why they had executed or why they have put some stuff in their portfolio in a sequential manner. So that was one thing which is, I mean, the shift in hiring process is that it's not about like just going through all the portfolios and all. It's like what is different is being prioritized upfront. So people have to actually look into those things, like how can I put my portfolio in a different way, in an authentic way kind of thing. So which you need to also look at the second step, where how can you communicate all those skills the same way how you have presented in the portfolio, the first step. And the other
Wait. So I just want to clarify. Is this a technical skill, or is this a communication skill, or is it both?
I think technical skill, we could look at the portfolio, and even it is even if there are some execution mistakes that can be handled, like there is always a fix for that, or there is always someone who can learn about it. But whereas if we are not communicating it efficiently in that thing, that's where it's a red flag, because even if you have done some design, we were not able to communicate to the leadership, and at a point of time it becomes that you have not worked on it. So which is where like communication is the most important thing, like why we are taking some decisions while executing that interfaces in such a manner. So if that communication skill is not there, it's like a red flag for companies.
Fascinating. Now, when you say communication skills, are you saying language skills or the ability to articulate why you did what you did?
It's purely why they did what they did. It's not related to any English or any grammar sort of thing. Like just to communicate one sentence, like why did you place a widget there, and you have some justification around it because of this reason, and these are the decisions that they put. That's the simple English would work out just to communicate the thoughts.
Got it. That's very interesting and fascinating. So, and I see that because one of the things that is different within a UX career versus a graphic design career is UX design roles are much more interactive. You're working with a lot of different people, and it's a much flatter organization. So in which case, You have to communicate with engineers, you have to communicate with product managers, you have to communicate with business leaders. So your ability to explain your reasoning to each one of these audiences is just as important. That's something that you're saying, yes, you are definitely looking for the reasoning. It's not just communication, but the reasoning of why people did what they did. Awesome, awesome. So, Simran, what is your experience? And again, I'm going to come back and I'm going to ask stories. If you have any stories, and we're running out of time, so this is probably going to be the last question. But Simran, what has your experience been? And I know you have a very interesting story for interviewing, I'd love to hear from you.
Okay, so about a few months ago, about 5 months ago, there was this post on LinkedIn that I had replied to. And this post was a person who did a design audit on a Zoho product or whatever. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So they did a design audit on a Zoho product, and soon as I got this video sent to me by about few employees, okay, and they said, what are your thoughts on this and stuff? Because I have also ranted about some of the UX inconsistencies that I have come across. And I feel it's good being a part of the company to sort of rant about the things wrong with your company. That way, you can only be self-critical about yourself and take action. You cannot criticize others when you can't really do anything about it, but you can criticize yourself because you have the ability to do something about it, right? So this person had done this. There was this video that was sent to me, and I was very curious. I clicked on it, expecting so much, and it was such a letdown. It was a terribly done job, and it more than a design audit, it seemed like it was a rant. So I don't know, I just had to comment. So I commented on that post, and when I checked last time, about a month ago or something, my comment had gotten more likes than her post itself. So because of this particular stunt of mine, a lot of recruiters had reached out to me on LinkedIn with job offers and opportunities and stuff. And I wasn't prepared for anything. But then there was this one company that reached out to me, and they seemed interesting. So I was like, okay, let me just see what they have to say. I wanted to also understand the design maturity and stuff. So I had gone to this company. It was an online call with this recruiter.
So you weren't
And
necessarily looking to change jobs, but
I wasn't.
you were curious about
The industry,
how the
just testing
process
the
would work.
waters, just understanding
Got it.
what is an. I've never been for an interview like the last interview I had was 9 years ago, so I've never
Got
been
it.
for an interview like this. So I was like, okay, let me see how relevant I am, right?
Got
It
it.
was just one of those questions. So I attended this. The recruiter had spoken to me, and he told me that these are the expectations of the company, and this is the design maturity and stuff. And I was pretty fascinated because that company seemed to really understand UX. It seemed to understand how business decisions could be driven by design and stuff. And that was something I was like, okay, let me just see what this is. It's not like I'm going to take anything. I was just purely testing the waters, right? So I approached them, and they, for some reason, weren't interested in looking at a portfolio. They just said, we'll give you a task, you do that task and get back to us. I said, okay, let's see where this goes. So the task itself, the question that I was given, the problem statement was very interesting. I was like, that problem statement itself showed me how mature this company is. So I did the task. Um,
So can
and
you give a brief description of the problem statement that you got? Maybe you could change some of the key
yeah,
elements, but it'd be very curious to, I'm sure other people are curious as well. What was the
okay.
task?
So this role was for senior designer. Right. So, and ideally, with senior designer came management responsibilities and stuff. And my mentorship with college sort of helped me secure that better because they asked me if I have experience in managing people. And I said, not in my organization, but I spoke about the Portfolio Builder series and told them about how I had these many people under me. So I had a sense of people management and stuff. And that seemed to have convinced them and was satisfactory for them. But when it came to the design, the design challenge that they gave me was they asked me to design a dashboard for a customer support executive of a senior manager, customer support executive, so that they'll be able to track their team's performance. That was it. That was all.
Okay.
There was nothing else that I got. It was just this.
So why was it a mature UX company? This anybody could have given, right?
No, because like immature UX companies will tell you to do something like, something very silly with regard to a very UI level, like recreate the screen or redo the screen or something like that. Mostly it'll be tasks like that. But this company, however, it was interested to understand how could design be able to solve this problem, where when this problem was uh, to design a dashboard, and this dashboard had to be useful because a senior manager is someone who has like a lot of people under them, right? It's not like you have one or two reporters. You have about 300 or something, and you're the person on top who's managing like level 1, level 2, level 3, and so on. There's a hierarchy over there. So for that person, how do I create a dashboard? And so there are so many things
But they didn't say that. They didn't say
yeah,
that
they didn't tell me
upfront. They
anything.
just said
So
for a senior manager.
yeah, so I had to sit and figure out, understand, okay, what were their KPIs and stuff. First of all, I was clueless as to how to proceed. This seemed so challenging because it's just a 2-line statement, and all they said was, we'd like, oh yeah, this was another caveat. They asked, we'd like your Figma file, a document of your decisions, and an explainer video that was not more than 2 minutes long. So in 2 minutes, I had to tell them the entire story as to my decision making, all that stuff, right? So that was a pretty interesting experience to go through because I had to think about, like, from a strategic level about how what would a senior manager require, what were their KPIs, and track the KPIs of every single other uh, junior manager and stuff, all the way to the bottom of the support chain, right? Of the support hierarchy. And I used ChatGPT because I had about 2 days to do this. So I had to use ChatGPT, get a lot of information, so synthesize a lot of data, and then decide, okay, this is how this is going to be and stuff. So it was a very interesting, I really had fun doing this. I mean, I enjoyed this entire process. And then what happened was got back to my recruiter. They really enjoyed, I mean, they really loved this. And they said that, okay, we are not going to go and hire anymore. Like, I think you're going to get it. So they told me that they're not going to look out for any other candidates and stuff. And I was that time I was thinking, should I just tell them that I'm just, messing around here? I'm not really serious, but okay, let's see where this goes. And what this recruiter told me gave me a ego boost and also instilled some confidence in me. And then this guy told me that on the next round, the company will interview you for problem solving or analytical skills or something like that. And I said, okay. And then he said, prepare for puzzles. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? Like, what does prepare for puzzles mean? Like, and then he told me about these analytical puzzles, these problem solving puzzles, these, like you have a goat and a lion and a guy on this side and this guy's across the river, those kind of puzzles, just problem solving. So I consumed a lot of that content, about 50 to 100 puzzles I would have gone through and everything. And then it was the day of the interview and I was pretty confident, right? And this guy introduced himself to me, he spoke and everything. And then he asked me a question that I knew the answer for, but now I had to be like, wait, but how did I arrive at this answer? Because since I consume so much of content about problem solving, I forgot the process involved in arriving at the answer. So the question was, it was like one of these crossing the bridge sort of questions.
Sure.
And I knew the answer was the particular, and they asked me how much time will it take, and I knew the answer was 15 minutes, but I forgot the steps to arrive at that. So I was sitting and like pretending like I was trying to figure it out. I was just racking my brain to get the steps, and I finally got the steps, and I noted down and told him. And he was pretty happy with the output. And then he gave me a guesstimation question. And this was something I wasn't expecting because guesstimation, first of all, is something I had no idea about. And I didn't expect to be asked this kind of question, right? Problem solving, to some level, I can understand the relevancy, but this was a little odd. And the guesstimation question was, pick your favorite fast food restaurant. So I said Oven Story. And then this guy said, calculate the uh, the weekly revenue for this particular branch on at lunch or something like that. I mean, for a day. Yeah, not lunch, just for a day. And I was thinking, okay, this is simple. And I made the rookie mistake of running straight to the solution. And this guy gave me this disclaimer saying, ask me any question that you have and just speak your mind. And I was just saying this and that and this and that. And I arrived at some reason as to how many pizzas they'll be able to produce in a particular hour. And I told them that on average, they'll produce about X amount of money. And what I did was they'll receive about X amount of money. And what I did was I just multiplied X by 7. I said 7X, this is the amount. And then that guy didn't really seem too impressed by that. And that's when I had a realization that, yeah, I think I blew this, right? So after the interview was done, I asked him, I just shared, I said, I have a feeling that this didn't really go as you expected. And he's like, yeah. And I said, okay, so could you tell me how would you solve this? I just asked him that if you don't mind. And he said, yeah, I'll tell you. And then he showed me, I mean, he just told me his process. And he said that he would divide weekends and weekdays first. And then he said that he would divide where the area and understand the location of the restaurant. And then based on the location of the restaurant, how many people can afford to eat from here. So what is the kind of lifestyle that people around this particular neighborhood are living? Is it a posh area or a simple area? So based on all those variables, he said that this will be how I would approach it. And the call ended, and I was just pretty annoyed as to why. I mean, wondering why was I asked this? Like, what relevancy does this have to do with me? Like, I'm doing design. It's you want to know something about the best practices for login or the best practices for like, responsive design or like something about how to design the chat experience, etc. Yeah, cool. I get it. But this, like, why would in what universe would you want to know this information? Why? And that's when I approached you and spoke to you about this experience and everything. And you opened my eyes to make me understand that they didn't really care about the answer. They did not care at all about the answer. Like I could have given them the most randomized number and they wouldn't have bothered. They were more interested in the approach I had taken to solve a problem. So they were trying to understand what method am I approaching towards solving the problem? How am I thinking about it? How am I breaking it down? Because those are vital skills. And I made the rookie mistake of jumping to the solution when what they were expecting me to do was sit and really analyze the problem. And that's what he mentioned as well, right? I would break it down as to understand all the various components that contribute to that particular revenue of that particular day. So that was something that was pretty interesting. And after the call with you, I was reflecting on this as well. And the interviewer had called me and told me that I didn't make it through and everything. And I was like, okay, like, it's not like I cared. It's not like I wanted to get there anyway. But what she said was, it was great talking to you. You were a great conversationalist, etc., etc. And they just said that it's not a personal, there's nothing personal. Like they were impressed with everything, but because I had not done a good job here, they said that they need someone to manage me for a while. So they were looking for someone who's got that problem solving skill. And that's when I felt a little bad. Not because I didn't get it, but because I was nervous. And the problem is when I was nervous, I jotted and ran straight into my default action, which was panic. And I was operating from panic mode. So I didn't really operate from a point of clarity, from clear thinking, none of that. So I guess that was the reason for my failure. So then I shared the story with one of my friends. And interestingly, this guy laughed at me and he said that, bro, like, had you told me this, I would have asked you to just talk, like, just keep expressing and talking about the problem. And I said, why? And he said the same thing, that they were just testing out the problem. This is a strategy that these guys are using. And apparently, a lot of companies are doing this. So after that, I've been preparing myself, and now I think I'm a little bit more capable of working under pressure and being in this situation. I attended that interview purely for an experimental purpose, just to understand what is required. And I'm happy that I had that experience because that really taught me a lot, taught me
Yeah,
how to
yeah.
approach things better.
Now, this is interesting because
Yeah.
people now, what is interesting that I find is people are no longer, of course, they expect you to have your basic skills. They expect you to be, and again, I'm not going to get into the ethics of whether you should do a task or not, because that is the reality. I'm going to, go down that path. Whether you choose to do it or not is your choice. But, you know, what I find interesting, especially in the last year or 2 years, is people are asking more higher level questions. They're asking system level questions. They're asking to see what your thought process is. They're
Yeah.
not really caring about the outcome that you drove, but how did you think and why did you think about that? And I think, and that's the same thing that Bhaskar is also saying, is being able to give a rationale and being able to think through the problem is just as critical.
Yeah. In fact, when Bhaskar was talking, a lot of these reflections were coming. As I just wish I had known all this just so that I would be able to crack it and then tell them that, hey, I'm not interested. But thank you for
Right.
your time.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. So I'm going to leave it open for questions. So if you have any questions or thoughts, please feel free to put it in here. But what I'm getting right now is the higher order thinking, the clarity, the ability to articulate are the skills that we need to focus on, and also being able to work in ambiguity. Go ahead, Achyut. You have a question?
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. So, first thing, sir, quickly, I wanted to just thank my mentor, Simran, because of the kind of dedication. What I feel is like with the mentor, first thing is the trust that you have that they want you to succeed. Because I still remember the feedbacks went until one-on-one feedback in my series went until 12:30, where it was post. He also had his work and, they have the project. But having said that, I feel like that's one thing that is there in this community that
Your
basically
audio is
capable
breaking up, Achyut.
skills.
Achyut, your audio is breaking up. You may want to
Sir, am
reconnect
I
on a
audible now?
different
Is it?
device. Yeah, now you are. But there's a lot of echo, but go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I feel like. I know the kind of mindset they have that they want their mentees to succeed is what creates the very ground that we also want to take 10 steps ahead. And having said that, I just had one question, sir, with all the mentors and you also. Like with AI being here in the industry now for 1.5 years, what do you think the entry barrier in the design ecosystem has increased to? How should freshers look at jobs, or even for that matter people with experience when they are going for jobs with regards to AI? How did the entry barrier change? Like, just wanted to know what are the
Got it.
expectations that industries are having right now, like.
Got it. So this is interesting because I know at least two people. I don't know how much Bhaskar has spent thinking about this specific question. But Simran, when he interviewed, he mentioned that he used ChatGPT to do his task. Right? And I
Right.
know Saurabh recently used the new version of ChatGPT to do certain work that basically made a job redundant. So we basically were talking, yeah, so we don't need to hire this role. Like, yeah, so literally one role was eliminated on our hiring in real time. So I would love to hear both from Saurabh and Simran and Bhaskar. If you have a opinion, please do let us know. But Saurabh, do you want to go first and like share about like, okay, what do you think companies going to look for?
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, nowadays as I told, one thing is basically, relying more on learning more cognitive skills and less of technical ones. Technicals are for sure you need to learn. You should be able to at least execute something, and you should be able to do it really, really well, right? But along with that, you need to be open for all these new trends. Like, you need to be able to manage new technologies, right? Be it AI or anything that's coming. And you should be able to correlate these, right? To ultimately deliver what is asked of you, whether it's a digital product or let us say research report or something, right? So it's okay. Half part of it is okay. What skills do you have? What technical skills do you have? How are you able to manage these technologies? But other half is also how are you feeling about them, right? Are you comfortable, or are you being nervous about this sudden evolution of different things? That's one, right? And yeah, but as uh, in this current trend, when it's more of a hybrid kind of work and things like that, being able to execute and being able to execute in a way in which you are driving outcomes for the product is the most important thing that the companies are looking for. That is why you see people are hiring for more experienced folks and not beginners, right? But it's not about just that. The other trend is also that people are being very open. They are not looking for degrees, right? There are different ways to now evaluate different individuals, right? Okay, how are they looking at a problem? How are they approaching? So one example we got to listen from Simran as well, right? So the opportunities are becoming more and more open, right, than traditional. So it's actually an opportunity also. Here you just need to focus on, okay, how can I manage technologies? How can I be confident? How can I learn the foundational, or the fundamental skills that are required from me to deliver on work from day one, right? If you focus on that and if you excel your skills on that, then you can keep building other skills on top of that later, right? But what you need to understand, or anybody who is looking for a job opportunity needs to understand is, okay, what is it that companies are expecting from me, and can I deliver that? If yes, good. If not, how can I build those skills? Yeah.
I would like to just add one thing to what Saurabh had mentioned, which is management. Okay. The word management is misunderstood big time. Okay. So traditionally, the word management was, at least if you look at the traditional manufacturing or the labor industry, okay, you did not need to know how to put a solder or put a iPhone together. You don't need to know that. Okay. All you needed to know was how to get people to do the work. So you either threaten or you fire or hire or do whatever, but you get the job done. Right? Now, that is when you're doing mechanical work. And traditionally, what I've also seen, bleeding over into the IT sector in the last, at least in the initial years of the IT, was people would have that similar management philosophy. When they would come in, they say, I don't need to know what needs to be done. I just need to, scare or push or cajole or beg or do whatever X to that guy to get the job done. Okay? But I don't need to know the job myself. That is the mindset. Okay? But now imagine you are responsible for delivering the work, but you have a direct report who gets something wrong 25% of the time. And the 25% of the time that they get wrong, you will get fired, not the direct report. So what should your skills be? Your management skills now are different. Right? The management skills here are, you should be able to look at the quality of the work that was done. You should be able to critique the quality. You should be able to say what needs to be done to improve it. And you need to know exactly what to ask of your direct report to get the job done. Right? So when you're using an AI tool, that's exactly the same skills that people are expecting today, which is, one, do you know what needs to be done? So can you tell the system what you want it to do? Can you identify the mistakes that the system did? Can you fix those mistakes? And can you ship it? So that is the definition of management today when you're managing AI. So those are the skills that you're looking at, and which is why it is no surprise that when you look at the interviews that are changing, they're more towards, can you articulate? Can you think through? Can you think at the systemic level? Can you describe? That is what people are interviewing for. And that is exactly, and those kinds of interviews are going to become way more common. Like, if you want to create a graphic design, I can automate that job. I do not need a graphic designer today. And I can say that very, very confidently. Right? And to be honest, till last month, we had a graphic design job open. And just last month, once Saurabh and Rajiv and all these guys figured out how to get this done with the AI, we said, let's cancel that job opening. That is the reality that is happening in companies. So, Simran, you have a different perspective coming from, and I know it's going to take a little bit of time, but this is a super important topic. So I want to make sure that people are getting this. So, Simran, you have used ChatGPT to do your task. Okay. Now, let us assume that in the interview, if your interviewer had asked you, did you use AI to do this task? What would you have said? Yes or no?
100% yes.
Why?
Because I think learning how to manage an AI is itself a very competent skill. And Achyut is, by the way, an extreme genius when it comes to ChatGPT and his prompts and stuff. He's got an entire Notion document with various types of prompts. So he really knows his prompt game. And prompting is a skill. So, like, in fact, I have this story I can recollect just about a few weeks ago. My brother was writing a bio for his, he's giving a presentation or something like that. And he goes to Chat. I told him, why don't you use ChatGPT? And he goes to ChatGPT. He says, I want a bio. And ChatGPT gives him this templated bio, and it had nothing. And he said, "This is stupid." Right? Then I told him, like, "Yo, come here." So I sat with him. I told him, "Okay, state out what you first give the AI a role, assume a role." So I told him assume a role of an editor or whatever. I asked him, "I want to communicate this, 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 this. Write me a bio. Give me 3 variations." And I said, "Now send it." And then, or I said, try this approach where you say, ask me 3 questions about myself, one by one, uh, summarize what I'm responding, and then give me a concise bio, not more than 3 sentences long. And then once he did that, and it took him about an hour to do that. It's not like it was just like toast that just popped the minute I pressed that button down, right? It took a while. And after that, he was able to have that bio written. Now he could have thought and thought and thought and thought, and it would have taken about a day to write that bio, because a bio is a really tough thing to write. It's like 2 lines that should be really crisp, and every single word over there matters, right? And it takes a while. So this just helped him do this. And I'd like to add one more point. So since I was coming from motion graphics to UX, right? So in motion graphics, knowing your motion graphic tool is extremely crucial to your career. It's not like UX where you're problem solving. Like, I should be extremely competent in After Effects. Apart from having visual storytelling and all that, I should be very competent in After Effects, because at the end of the day, whatever vision I'm having in my head should be delivered, right? So competency in that tool is extremely important, and you should really know that tool in depth. But when it came to UX, I in the beginning used to be very confused when I saw components. When I thought that, okay, I don't have to recreate anything, then what am I doing? Like, there's no fun. Like, I'm not going to draw that square again. And that's when I realized that, wait, hold on, the problem is not that pretty screen. The problem is not that beautiful screen. It is, you're solving a problem right now. So you already have like parts available to you. You have to put these parts together and solve the problem. So now when that is the approach, the lesser mechanical work I do, the better I'm able to focus on the problem. And that's what I'm starting to realize. I mean, I started realizing after the intensive course and everything, that the lesser manual work I need to do, the more I'm able to think about the problem, because 100% of my energy is focused on the problem rather than it being divided by 50% solving and 50% in execution. And AI is just going to help reduce the manual labor so that you're completely focused on getting that problem solved, and you'll do it faster as well. So that is, waiting for a Figma to just read my mind. Give me like 5 variations just like that, and then I'll choose. Technically speaking, my manager is the one who's going to be replaced, not me, because his job is to take my screens and evaluate what's going to work or whatever, or review my work. Well, now I am doing that. So
But again, I also see the opportunity for micro entrepreneurship.
yeah.
So I see, I mean, right now, if you go to Google, they have this tool where it will generate code for you in a language of your choice. You just tell them. And right now, that tool is able to generate code that is better than 85 or 95% of all the code submitted in public forums. So that number is only just going to increase. So it's learning how to work with AI is going to be the game. So with that said, I'm going to have let Bhaskar have the last word. I know you have some thoughts, and you also wanted to add something. So Bhaskar, it's all yours. What are your thoughts?
I think the expectations from freshers, as Achyut asked, about AI is considerably very less as far as I see in the ecosystem. Because if you boil down like what is expected from freshers, it's more like technical skills, and now it's completely different kind of thing where you need even certain kind of documentation skills are skills upon that technical skills to stand out, which is where I think AI would be helpful if you know, but how would you use it is really what matters. Like Simran said, I think it's. I mean, if I look at the current trend of hiring for even senior level roles, uh, that's where the problem statement are not related to designs. So if I remember the recent conversation with someone, I think it's more like
It
the
was me,
problem
bro.
statement was, huh?
It was me.
No, no, not you, not you.
Okay.
If it was, I would have mentioned. So it was more like uh, why do people stagnate in their roles in a company, and how can we actually help them grow up to the next level? So that is the actual problem statement given to us senior UX designer to solve in that call, like a whiteboarding session. So I think that's where there is these technical skills are becomes relevant and irrelevant kind of thing at that point of time, and your thinking skills, your articulation skills comes into place. And also the tasks which are being given right now are like pretty much simple tasks, and they have extended that the delivery date from or time from 2 days to 7 days, which is like because they understand that they will be using AI anyhow, but they're giving that flexibility to actually channelize your thoughts and actually prioritize what you want to talk in that task. So that's where there is these two shifts which is happening currently in hiring process. Like there is no design centric or technical skills which they are asking for once you have done that portfolio presentation. It's all your communication skills that matters and your articulation skills that would be helpful for you to crack it.
And your variabilization skills, right? So if you have to be able to take a problem, variabilize it, present it. So that's really cool. And it's also one other thing, the 7 days, people's expectations of quality is much higher.
Yes.
Because they know you're going to use AI. So before, if you had 2 days, they would expect maybe X quality. Today, they're expecting X plus 10 quality because they know you're using AI and you have additional time.
And then it is easy to find out people who have used AI because that's where the documentation and skills itself shows how people have, whether they have used it or not, or whether they have used it very systematic way. So that's where there are so many use cases where I got to know that there is this starting sentence, here is your result, is also being documented, which is like a big red flag in your whole hiring process.
So in fact, in intensive, I know Saurabh told me a story where, and what we tell our students is don't use AI until you know how to use the method, and then we'll teach you how to use AI. But people will still want to experiment. So they go use AI. And then after that, you start asking questions about it. And people can't answer. Why did you do this? Why did you not do that? Why did you do this? So people can't answer. So automatically they kind of get stuck. You know that person used AI. And so these are things that are just going to happen more and more. And I think, and I really want to thank Simran, Saurabh, and Bhaskar for all your time and your passion this year. And I know a lot of members within our community also thank you for your time, effort, and your genuine interest in their careers to help them grow. And so thank you very much, guys. I think you are changing people's lives and you're helping people build their careers. That said, what I do want to do is, this is going to be the last session of the year, and next year we will see you again. So what I want you to do is, I really want you to reflect, because our community is not a community for networking. It's a community for learning from each other and growing on the real tangible skills. I would love for you guys to reflect and think about what you want to do in the coming year, right? What skills you want to build, because the economy is changing so fast. The world is changing so fast. I think it's time that we start thinking about how we want to be helped. And when you tell us that and you share that data either with your mentors or with Hoy or with Rajiv, anybody, just pick up the phone, send a message, get on Discord, share it with us, because that is going to help us evolve and help you better in the coming year. Right. So thank you very much, guys, and have a happy new year in advance, and see you guys next year.
Thanks, Prasad.
Thank you,
Happy
sir.
New Year.
Thank you, everyone. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, guys.
Thank you. Happy New Year,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.